कहानी धरती की, जहां धरती बोलेगी और हम सब सुनेंगे। एक ऐसा कार्यक्रम जो आपको ले जाएगा धरती के सफर पर, जहां विज्ञान के जरिए हम समझेंगे उसके पुराने रहस्य, बदलता स्वभाव और उनसे जुड़ी रोचक जानकारियां। हर एपिसोड में धरती का अतीत, वर्तमान और भविष्य एक आसान और दिलचस्प बातचीत के साथ। तो आइए आपको मिलवाते हैं हमारे अगले एपिसोड के गेस्ट से।
डॉक्टर सबीना, जब हम धरती के इतिहास को समझने की बात करते हैं तो हमें दिखाई देता है डायनासोर, बड़े बड़े चट्टानें, पहाड़, पर्वत, बड़े विशाल पेड़ पौधे, जिसको हम अध्ययन करते हैं और हम ये समझते हैं कि हाँ, ऐसा अध्ययन होते होंगे और जिससे हम धरती का इतिहास पता करते हैं। लेकिन आपकी जो फील्ड ऑफ स्टडी है, जिसमें आप माइक्रो फॉसिल्स की स्टडी करते हैं, जिसमें आप पॉलन ग्रेन्स और स्पोर्स को पढ़ते हैं, यानी ऐसे माइक्रो फॉसिल जिसको हम आंखों से भी शायद नहीं देख सकते, जो 1 मिलीमीटर से भी छोटे होते हैं, तो आखिर कैसे आप इनसे वो स्टडी करते हैं और कैसे आप इस धरती को नए सिरे से परिभाषित करते हैं और उसके इतिहास को, जो उसका वैज्ञानिक इतिहास है, वो आप लोगों को तक पहुंचाते हैं थ्रू योर रिसर्च पेपर्स?
At the outset, I would like to introduce the term palynology, especially from the student perspective or from the beginner's viewpoint, so that we can set the table for the rest of our discourse. So, when we look at paleontology, it is a branch of geology that deals with the study of fossils. And the palynology is part of micropaleontology because they are microscopic in nature and would require the assistance of a microscope to study their morphological and anatomical features as well. So when we study palynology, first we would like to know what's its definition, and it was defined by Heids and Williams as a study of spores and pollen, their dispersal and applications. But later, Alfred Travers had given a more pragmatic definition, which states that it's not just the study of spores and pollen, whereas all the other organic wall microfossils that are resistant to acid treatment and that can, while deriving them from the sedimentary rocks. So then you have now palynology includes the study of all organic wall microfossils like acritarchs, chitinozoans, colicodonts, as well as spores and pollen. Now, spores and pollen in specific can be approached from their studies can be approached both from a botanical perspective as well as from a geological perspective. So when we look at them from a botanical perspective, you approach them either they have their implications or applications in the field of aeropalynology, where you study the spores from the viewpoint of the allergens and the source from which they are derived, the geographic areas that are prone that they grow in and that are more prone to certain specific allergies. And then you have melissopalynology, which deals with the study of honey, where you trace the source of honey and its medicinal values and its quality. And then you have its applications in the field of forensic science, where you call the forensic palynology, where, as you know, forensic science deals with detecting the criminals, and based on the spores and pollen that can be retrieved from their garments or from their footwear, we can trace the source where the crime was actually done, and you can trace back where the criminal has ran away or is hiding. But from a geological perspective, when we look at the applications of palynology, it's more in the field of biostratigraphy, where we actually, by terms of the spores and pollen or the other microfossils that are retrieved from the sediments, we can provide the relative age of the strata as well as the paleoclimate, as well as based on their degradation and we can also infer their hydrocarbon potential. Now the question arises, why are these microfossils so potential and a reliable tool in the field of addressing several geological problems? Firstly, they are produced in enormous numbers, which facilitates retrieving statistically significant assemblages. And secondly, they are characterized by unique morphological features whereby they can be identified and differentiated from each other. And also thirdly, they are also made up of sporopollenin, a chemical compound, which is resistant to degradation and therefore have been facilitating them to be preserved as fossils through the geological time. And they're also resistant to all the acid treatments that they are being subjected to later in the laboratories. And also their size, because they are all less than 200 millimicron roughly, they can be carried as along with the sediments and deposited, which can assist us to, and deposited, which can later be retrieved for various studies. So then these rock strata in which they are deposited, they can be, by virtue of their presence and their absence, the layers in which they are present, they can be used to provide us the assist us to relatively date these sediments, because there are two kinds of dating, as you know, that relative dating and absolute dating. So absolute dates provide actually an approximate numerical value, whereas when these pores and pollen are found in a particular layer, you can differentiate based on these absolute dates, either they are older or younger.
डॉक्टर सबीना, आज भारत और ब्राज़ील एक दूसरे से हज़ारों किलोमीटर दूर हैं, लेकिन कभी ये एक सुपर कॉन्टिनेंट गोंडवाना का हिस्सा थे। आपने अपने पोस्ट डॉक्टरल रिसर्च में ब्राज़ील जाकर और बहुत से फॉसिल्स वहाँ इकट्ठे किए और स्टडी की, और ये बताया कि हमारे दो महाद्वीप जो आज महासागरों की दूरियां जिनमें हैं, हज़ारों किलोमीटर जो दूर हैं, वो उनमें समानताएं आपने निकाली हैं। तो ये जो दुर्लभ स्टडी आपने की है, इसके बारे में हम आपसे जानना चाहेंगे कि आखिर वो क्या समानताएं हैं, और आखिर ये जब ये दोनों हमारे जो देश हैं, जब ये अलग अलग महाद्वीप एक सुपर कॉन्टिनेंट का हिस्सा थे, वो क्या समय था और वो क्या स्टडी आपने वहाँ जाकर की?
So before we could have the present day configuration of continents, as you can see, we are in India in the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere continents as it is today. We didn't have this before. Through the geological time, we had several other configurations. Sometimes India was in the equator, sometimes at the pole, sometimes, and currently we are where we are. But when we look at Gondwana supercontinent, prior to this existence of this supercontinent, we had another supercontinent called the Rodinia, and its breakup was diachronic, and wherein during the first phase of its breakup, those continents or cratons, which would later constitute Eastern Gondwana, had actually detached from Pangaea, and in the second half of its breakup, those cratons, which would later constitute the Western Gondwana, had broken from Pangaea, and they amalgamated at around 540 million years. And during the late Paleozoic, both the West and the East Gondwana continents had moved to the southern Paleo-high latitudes, that is occupying around 90 to 60 million years. And then, therefore, these Gondwana core continents, which the western ones are by the South American continents, African, and the Indian and the East Gondwana is constituted by India, Australia, and Antarctica. So they all were a single landmass and had witnessed similar paleoclimatic conditions, and were also characterized by similar sedimentary features and as well as fossils. And that's how Brazil, which is part of South America, and India had shared similar vegetation, and which now through fossils we can retrieve the same from Indian sedimentary sequences and their coeval Brazilian sedimentary sequences like the Parana Basin, where you get the Glossopteris and other primitive conifers like the chordates like the Caneropolis, Platypollinitis, and that's how we can say that they were single landmass at one time in the geological time.
डॉक्टर सबीना, आप अपने प्रयोगशाला में जब एक पत्थर लाती हैं तो उसमें हज़ारों लाखों माइक्रोफॉसिल्स आपकी पकड़ में आ जाते हैं, लेकिन जब हम कोई पत्थर उठाते हैं तो वो हमको पत्थर ही दिखाई देता है। तो आखिर कैसे आप अपने प्रयोगशाला में वो पत्थर लाते हैं और कैसे उन पत्थरों से माइक्रोफॉसिल्स को निकालते हैं अपने प्रयोगशाला में, और कैसे वो कहानी शुरू होती है जिसमें आपके नई रिसर्च दुनिया के सामने आती है और आप ये बताती हैं कि ये नन्हे नन्हे माइक्रोफॉसिल्स या जो स्पोर्स हैं, इसमें धरती की पूरी कहानी छुपी हुई है। ये एक जो रोचक दास्तां है आपकी प्रयोगशाला की, वो हमें बताइए।
Firstly, a student or a geologist should be aware of what kind of sample has to be collected. Like when we look at geology, we have a subject called petrology, which deals with the study of rocks. So there are three kinds of rocks, that is the igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic rocks. So when we look at the igneous rocks, they're actually formed either by the consolidation of magma or lava. That's according respectively, they are either intrusive igneous rocks or extrusive igneous rocks. And since they are formed by magma, obviously you do not expect any sediment, any fossils from these. And then next you have the sedimentary rocks, which are actually formed by sedimentation And this is the most promising rocks that can give us all kinds of fossils. And next you have the metamorphic rocks, which either the sedimentary or the igneous rocks undergo under high temperature and pressure. They undergo several changes, and therefore the fossils cannot be retrieved even from these rocks either. So we geologists and the students should mainly focus on sedimentary rocks. And then next, the focus would be what kind of fossils are you looking for? If you're looking for marine fossils, so obviously you should look into marine sediments. And if you're looking for terrestrial fossils, you should look into fluvial sediments. So based on, after you have been clear with this and you've collected your samples, you bring it to the laboratory. And here in the laboratory, you're going to subject them to various acid treatments to liberate these fossils from these rocks. So firstly, you're going to subject them with a hydrochloric acid treatment to digest the carbonates. And then you have treatment with the hydrofluoric acid to digest the silicates. And in between, you subject them to certain washes with water, distilled water, to dilute them before subjecting to the next acid treatment. And then you sieve them, and then you mount them, or and either centrifuge them or do physical swirling and panning mechanisms. And then the residue is mounted on glass slides and cover slips and glass slides, and you observe them under microscope. So then you get all the kind of fossils you can know. You can start initiating your studies and your discoveries based on what is found there, and then it results in various results and interpretations and documentation.
आपके जो रोचक अध्ययन हुए हैं और जो बातचीत आपसे हुई, उसमें मुझे ऐसा लग रहा है कि पैलिनोलॉजी एक बहुत ही खूबसूरत अध्ययन का क्षेत्र हो सकता है। तो इस विषय में हमारे जो बच्चे, हमारे विद्यार्थी अगर वो तैयारी करना चाहें, तो उनमें किस तरह की कैपेसिटी और किस तरह की स्किल्स होने चाहिए और कितना क्यूरियस होने चाहिए वो इस सब्जेक्ट के प्रति?
Through my years of experience, I have observed one very important fact which has to be addressed seriously. Because when students come for their short-term training or for their master's dissertation at the Birbal Sahni Institute of Paleosciences, we noticed that during their graduation or in their post-graduation, including myself, we were not introduced to this subject called palynology. So this is a very strong drawback, because when a child is not introduced to what is even palynology, how would he or she even ever choose to make their future in this angle? So when it is the dire need of the hour that this topic be included into their graduation and post-graduation in detail, not just like a fragment of paleontology. So in this course, if you're going to introduce what is palynology, what are their applications, what are their future prospects, so a student has given a scope to decide if he or she is interested to decide to go into these lines, because palynology has a lot of scope in the field of oil industry, as well as in the field of where oil industry requires a lot of biostratigraphers, and where you're going to give the exact age of the sediments based on which the industry would decipher and can continue their further analysis in terms of oil research. And then also not just in the oil industry, we do also have in paleoclimatology as well, where based on the kind and the number of the spores and pollen or organic wall microfossils, you can interpret the climate, and as well as you have it in the field of biostratigraphy. So my submission would be that it has to be introduced in a very clear manner, having some credits so that they are already well prepared to either take this line in the future, given the prospects it carries, or either to proceed in the line of their choice.
सूक्ष्म जीवाश्मों ने बदला भारत का भूवैज्ञानिक इतिहास, गोंडवाना की नई कहानी। इस विषय पर आप विस्तार से चर्चा सुन सकते हैं डॉक्टर पॉलिन के साथ इस मंगलवार दोपहर 3 बजे केवल रेडियो KGMU गूंज पर।
तो ये थी एक झलक, लेकिन असली बातचीत अभी बाकी है। अगर आप इस विषय को थोड़ा और गहराई से समझना चाहते हैं तो जुड़िए हमारे साथ रेडियो KGMU गूंज 89.6 मेगाहर्ट्ज पर।
Radio